we're really proud with the lessons we've learned. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there's literal teams here at MakerBot. Their sole job was customer visits out in the field. How are you interacting with our Replicator 2? How are you interacting with our Replicator 5th generation? What do we need to do better? And I think, boiling down what we learned, it really comes down to a couple key learnings. One of them is reliability is more important than anything else. If we're going to buy a 3D printer at this price point, we need to know that this thing's going to be reliable enough to meet our expectations, but reliable enough, like, it's great that a $3,000 or $2,000 3D printer can provide us ROI, but all that ROI is out the window if this thing's not working reliably. So the number one focus we took with these new printers that I'll talk about in a bit, reliability, easy to use, workhorses. That's the number one mission. Number two is learnings that we came up with and that we found on the hardware side around advanced materials. Learnings we've heard from customers that were really interesting around noise. We need them to fit into our office. And then on the software side, learnings around how can this thing plug in as simply as possible with my 3D design software of choice, with my SolidWorks. How do I make it so it's a turnkey solution so I don't have to go through this whole learning curve to operate a 3D printer? So we met, we observed, and we listened. And we've also segmented our users. If you're I don't know who's on the line, I really don't. But if you're a home user that wants to tinker, that wants a 3D printer that they can get under the hood of and modify, at one point MakerBot was the right company for you. With these new printers, we're not really the right company for you. These are fully assembled solutions that are not so much fun to tinker with. They're just fun to use and print with, and they can produce extraordinary things. So we've kind of come to this realization, it's a tough learning that we had to, in many respects, leave behind, the tinkerer, the hobbyist, if they just want to build 3D printers or mess with 3D printers, and we're truly embracing the professionals and also educators. We're seeing tremendous pickup in the education space with the rise of maker spaces and labs and STEM, and educators have been a great niche for us. But today I'm going to talk about what we've seen in the enterprise space. An interesting trend has happened since 2014, and it's a trend that we are proud to be at the forefront of. The under $10,000 printer is rising and rising dramatically. 49% of sales in 2014, then it was 65% of all 3D printer sales in 2015, and 2016 we're at 78.7% of 3D printers sold during this under 10K space. So it's, the first revolution was kind of getting these big industrial 3D printers into prototyping shops and into all these companies. Now the next phase of that is companies that believe in 3D printing. They have their big anchor units. They have printers that can achieve really high tolerances and use advanced materials. But now these companies are investing in more 3D printers, MakerBot 3D printers, that they can spread out around the office, so they can empower more people to utilize 3D printing in the office, not just the RP shops. And they can have multiple iterations, multiple prototypes done in MakerBot PLA before it goes to the expensive but highly precise Fortis that's down the hall. This is the model that really, really smart companies have adopted already, and this is the model that MakerBot is building printers to cater for going forward. Now, if we look at the companies that are using MakerBot already, the list is very impressive. It's got very impressive customers, some of the best customers using MakerBot printers already. What I think is extraordinary, though, is that beyond this list of customers, we've got so many Fortune 100, Fortune 200 companies already using MakerBot 3D printers, and using a lot of them, doing exactly like I said, spreading out these 3D printers around their office. The reason their names do not appear on this list is when we talk to these companies, or when a company like Javelin does an install for these companies, gets them set up with 10, 15 printers around their office, we leave and we say, great day spent with you, glad you're up and running with these printers. Can we send our marketing folks, the MakerBot marketing folks, in to write a story, or can we add your brand name to a list like this? And the answer, 9 times out of 10, this is the 1 time out of 10, are those names on the screen right now. But 9 times out of 10, the answer is no way. Having MakerBot 3D printers around our office and empowering more teams to use 3D printing, that's competitive advantage. If you put it on this slide, or you put it on your blog, or put it out there with press, all of a sudden our competition knows that we are investing in desktop 3D printing. They know that our iteration cycles are are going to be faster, and that we've got this advantage over the market. So we can't even use most of the names we sell to, which is the craziest thing of all. So here are the names I can share. And why we think MakerBot is perfectly suited for professionals. Again, it's this combination of easy to use professional software that's better than anything else in the industry, hardware that fits your needs and fits what you want, and then materials that are suitable for industrial performance, but also in-office performance, so that it's not something that needs to be hidden away in a room. It's material that you can just print out in the open. It doesn't emit any odor or anything like that. So I'm going to start with the software that MakerBot offers to customers. The software is kind of a two-part solution. It's MakerBot Print, which is our free desktop software, and then MakerBot Mobile, which is our free mobile solution for you to utilize your 3D printer from the mobile. So let me give you a rundown of how MakerBot Print works. So you've got your file, you've designed it in SolidWorks, you import it directly from SolidWorks to MakerBot Print. We support native CAD importation. Once you bring it from SolidWorks into MakerBot Print, you can unsuppress the model. So everything you've designed in SolidWorks can be broken up or is broken up automatically in all these different parts that you can highlight each one. So if you saved all these different components in part of the suppression, you can select which you want to print here, which you want to print there. Pretty powerful stuff that previously did not exist with MakerBot's platform. This is new last month and really doesn't exist anywhere else in desktop 3D printing, where you have such a professional integration to go from SolidWorks right to your MakerBot Print like this and be able to suppress and hide files. And once you have all these different components of your headphone project, for example, MakerBot Print can automatically tell you, okay, here are 7 parts that will fit on a build plate. But there's a lot more to your print than just these 7 parts. So rather than just queue up one plate at a time, MakerBot Print can actually plate all your different projects and tell you, okay, to get that headphone suppression printed, it's going to take 3 plates, and here's the optimal orientation for you to get these made. You are not doing any work here. This is automatically done by MakerBot Print. They take your really, really complex headphone project from SolidWorks, plate it with optimal orientation to speed up print time, and queues it up so you can go one after the other, and in as professional a way as possible, as smooth a workflow as possible, get these things printed. So there are your 3 plates. And let's say you're part of a bigger organization and you've got international branches. Just because you are seated in Canada and your company has a MakerBot printer in Mexico, there's no reason, because of our networking and our cloud capabilities, that you can't just say, all right, let's send one print to the printer here in my head office and let's send another one down to the printer in Mexico. Or maybe just as relevant an example is, I've got 5 printers sitting in my office. One of them's idle right now. It's down in a different department, but I'm gonna tap into that. I'm gonna use it since it's sitting idle. I'm gonna send a print there overnight. So we really can think about these printers as highly networked solutions, and something that is a benefit not just to the physical space it sits in, but to the whole organization. A concern we heard from a lot of customers is, well, I've got one printer, it sits here, but doesn't get utilized nearly enough. I've got other teams that want it. Here's your perfect example. So many different teams can tap into the new MakerBot Print. And just to give you a visualization, when you click into, before you send a print to the printer, you get to go through that preview mode. It'll show you layer by layer how it's going to print. It'll also show you where it's adding in things like a raft or things like a support material that's made out of the PLA, but in such a way that it's completely uninvasive for you to quickly snap off after you're done with the part. So the MakerBot Print's got a very intuitive slicer and does a great job of showing you step by step how it's going to build, and building it in the most intelligent way possible. And you can control, without getting up, moving from your desk, you can queue up the print, heat up the printer, and send parts to the 3D printer, and even see a video camera with the onboard camera of how the print is progressing, when it's starting, when it's finished, notifications all the way through. And there you go. Your part is printing, and this tray, for example, took 3 hours, 41 minutes, and you've got a third of that headphone project printed. And if you've got 3 printers in the office, you've just banged out a really, really impressive and complex prototype in under 4 hours, in under a morning's work. So we talk a lot to these engineering and design firms about this design cycle. Previously it was going out of house and getting your prototype made in a few weeks and a few $100s overseas, and it comes back all wrong. Now the prototyping and the iteration cycle is completely changed. I come in the morning, I make some tweaks, I print something around lunch, it's done, I look at it, I make some more tweaks, I print something out before I go home, I look at it, iterate, print something overnight, come in the morning and do the whole thing over again. So three rounds of iteration in a day. It's incredible. It's a whole new way to go about designing, and you can really see, back to those Fortune 100 companies who don't share their use case stories with us, you can see the tremendous competitive advantage that having a lot of MakerBot 3D printers around the office can have in the design and iteration process. So, in summary on this MakerBot print, native CAD support. So from SolidWorks, you go right to MakerBot print without any conversion. It's cloud connected, so you can monitor your printers from anywhere and queue up prints at any printer that you're connected with. And then the slicer is great for supports, for wraps, for visualizing everything for you through the preview mode, and then for speed. The software orients the prints so that they're set up as powerfully as possible, and then the printers themselves are just faster than they've ever been in the MakerBot solution. And then MakerBot Mobile, I mentioned, is a great option to have as well. So if we think about that 3 iterations in one day, the morning, the afternoon, and the overnight, if you wanted to, let's say you left the office before you had a chance to queue up your last overnight print, from MakerBot Mobile, if you have it saved in your library, you can queue up the print. And from MakerBot Mobile, you can tap into the live camera to see that the printer is running successfully. And from MakerBot Mobile, you'll get push notifications when it finishes, if anything goes wrong, if you need to change filaments. All that good stuff is detected by the printer and pushed you over MakerBot Mobile, in addition to over MakerBot Print. All right, so that's software. I'm monitoring that question bar. So if there's anything unanswered about MakerBot Print or MakerBot Mobile, write it in on the questions. Looks like something came in here. Question came in about the hardware. Thank you for asking that. You teed me up on the build plate. I'm going to get to that in a second. Great question about how do we remove parts from the build plate? They tend to stick. Exactly. Pain point we heard from customers. Exactly. But does anyone have questions on the MakerBot Print? All right, great. I'll keep it rolling because I know we're on a tight 30-minute deadline. But question came in about print materials. I'll get to that in a second as well. All right, so the MakerBot Replicator Plus is this new release from MakerBot. And if you're familiar with the old MakerBot 5th generation printers, you might be looking at this thing and say, wow, looks a little familiar. It doesn't look all that different. And the answer we have to that, good sir, or madame, is what MakerBot has done is we've changed everything that matters to the customer. So the aesthetics we didn't feel were the part that were lacking from this 3D printer. What we found was lacking was reliability, assurance that when you start a print it would finish, speed, noise, exactly like you mentioned with the question, getting parts to snap off the build plate, material range. These are all things that we thought mattered to the customer, and we changed everything. So let me walk you through it. Here's the MakerBot Replicator Plus. And we're going to zoom in here on the new gantry system. This is a minor detail, but if any of you are technical, you're going to really enjoy this, this visualization of this new gantry system that's built on a slide and connected in 2 points. So our old gantry system was connected by 1 point, and it was just a single, it didn't have this bottom slide component to it, which in effect made the printer run a lot slower because if we moved the print head too fast, it would wobble around and deteriorate on quality. This slide mechanism here allows us to move the print head dramatically faster and maintain all the print quality that our customers expect from the MakerBot 3D printer. Another thing we've changed the Z stage in the build plate. So here's the Z stage. This is what moves up and down with the print. On past printers, there was a leveling knob underneath. It was a less stable, less sturdy Z stage. This is aluminum extruded Z stage. It does not require leveling. It's factory leveled, so it comes out of the box ready to print, and it's just a lot more stable, a lot more secure, so you can go much longer periods of time without having to calibrate anything. So it's a much more industrial setup. Between us, we use, better materials, stronger materials, better construction, completely re-engineered the Z stage, which allows for much better printing and also better print height. Speaking of the dimensions of the printer, I can show you a visualization that shows dramatically improved build area. So it's a little bit taller than it was in the past and a little bit longer than it was in the past. In inches, it's almost a foot wide, which is, what we heard from customers. Our old printer was about 10 inches wide. Those extra 2 inches or extra 1.5 inches makes a dramatic difference when it comes to getting some of these projects done. And that is the MakerBot Replicator Plus. 25% larger build area. I didn't mention it here, but part of the better construction makes this thing 27% quieter. And really, like, I've been in places where they had old MakerBot printers, and they have the new one running, and there's like, is that thing on, or what's happening? Because they can't even imagine that the printer could be so quiet. And then the speed with that new redesigned gantry can move 30% faster for prints. Really, really exciting stuff. Every new MakerBot Plus printer ships with a Smart Extruder Plus, and this has really been the silver bullet for MakerBot. It's really the first product that MakerBot put out with Stratasys, tested with Stratasys, the Smart Extruder Plus, the most reliable extruder we've ever released. It's something that customers have been raving about since it was released in January, and now it's standard with every MakerBot Plus series printer that ships. Okay, to the great question about the build plate, here we have it. The MakerBot, the Replicator Plus ships with this flex build plate. So, and it's also, instead of the blue painter's tape, you have this professional grip surface for better print adhesion. So all you do when you have a part is you print it onto this grip surface, and you take out the build plate when it's done. You flex it a little bit like you see in this picture, and especially on longer parts that are harder to break off, now all you do is you flex the plate, and you can pop it right off. There are times, especially on smaller prints, where you still need a little putty knife, but the flex plate allows you to get a little room underneath the print, so the putty knife becomes that much easier. Anyone who's experienced with these desktop 3D printers might have some scars on their hand from taking a putty knife and trying to pop prints off. No longer will that be the case with this MakerBot printer. The flex build plate eliminates that issue. Another question came in along the lines of support structures. How do those support structures I showed in MakerBot Print get milled away, or what do you have to do with them? They're snap-away supports. And the reason MakerBot doesn't use dissolvable supports, we actually used to. We have a 2X option that uses dissolvable supports, and some of our older printers, even before the 2 series, use dissolvable supports. What we heard was from users that had the option of breakaway or dissolvable, for the parts they were printing with MakerBot, dissolvable took a little too long. They wanted instant results. So rather than work on a dissolvable solution for our customers, we worked on how do we optimize the breakaway support so that they're as easy and simple as possible. So one thing we've done with this new printer too, if you're printing with a raft and supports, we've designed the supports so that they stick more to the raft than to the actual print. So when you snap the part off, you're going to find your supports are actually hanging to the raft more often than to the part. It's a really nice new feature from the MakerBot slicer. The question came in from one of you viewers out there about different materials, and the MakerBot printers, especially these 5th generation series, they specialize in PLA. PLA is a non-toxic bioplastic that fits in really well with the office. It's something you can put on your desk. It won't emit odor. That is what we find to be, our bread and butter, our sweet spot is this PLA. However, we did hear from some customers that the PLA isn't strong enough for them to do strength tests. So we rolled out this tough PLA that works with the new Plus series. So tough PLA mimics PLA in the way it prints. It doesn't need a heated bed, doesn't need an enclosed chamber, doesn't emit an odor. However, it's just as tough as ABS. It also has more flex than PLA and less warping in PLA. I'll show you a couple examples here, some pretty cool strength tests we've run. Here's the difference between PLA and tough PLA. PLA will break before tough PLA, dramatically before. When twisted in a part like this, the PLA will break much before the tough PLA. Tough PLA, much like ABS. And then in this vise, the give that tough PLA has, it's a lot more flexible. So we're excited about tough PLA as the option for desktop prototypers, iterators who need a stronger material, who need something that can stand up to better strength tests. And that's what we've come up with, is this really complete professional solution. The MakerBot Replicator Plus, the free software that comes with it, the MakerBot Print, the mobile solution that's free, and then the option of tough PLA if you have requirements that require the strength. We also have this Replicator Mini, a very nice option for people who only need to print small parts. Quality is just as good. Our Replicator Mini is fully re-engineered as well, faster, much quieter than the old Replicator Mini, if any of you have experience, and also a larger build volume, an extra inch in the Y direction on this printer. That in the past we see phone cases as a funny benchmark. The old Mini couldn't print phone cases. This new one has that extra inch, can print standard size phone cases. So yeah, here is our professional offering. And to give you a sense of price points, through October 31st, we have special intro pricing on the Replicator Plus, $9.99 US, and John and Javelin can help you with special pricing for Canadian customers. On the Replicator Mini side, we also have that on special, $9.99 US, and again, John and Javelin can help you with the Canadian pricing on that. So in conclusion, I just wanted to wrap by saying thank you for the time, everyone. I hope this was quick, informative, and enjoyable, and thank you, John and Javelin, for having me on. Let me know if we can help in any way. I'll turn it back over to you. Let's see if I can. Sorry, guys, I gotta make a.
Sorry, guys.
Presenter.
There we go. Hey, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes. Bennett, thanks very much for walking us through all of those things. I know I learned a few things. I hope everybody out there learned a lot as well. If there's any other questions out there, please type them in and we'll do a last check before we wrap up. In addition to the special pricing that Bennett mentioned on the MakerBots, it's available until the end of October. So I guess a couple more weeks to take advantage of that. We've gone ahead and bundled them in with some of our SOLIDWORKS offerings as well. So if you're on the fence out there and need a good reason to move forward, we've got some great pricing, pulling together everything from CAD model creation to making some great parts on the new MakerBots. Last slide. If you are looking to move forward on those prices, check out our web store. You can get those things, and I just try to summarize. MakerBot Plus, faster, larger, quieter, and more reliable. There is one more question that came in. Let me just have a look. Bennett, this is probably one that's for you if you're still there. Someone's just asking about,
sure,
third-party filaments.
Yeah, what a great question. And by the way, John, I don't know if I should have saw that first slide. Those are great prices you guys are offering. That's awesome. That's exciting for your customers. On third-party filaments, we've of course heard that there's a need and a want to use third-party filaments, and we absolutely do not prevent you from doing that. So MakerBot doesn't ship our filaments. We do have a special size of spool that fits in the actual drawer that you can see in the printers. There's a drawer that slides in nicely. But if you want to load in your third-party filaments through a side loader or however, through a hook or a feed from the top, you're more than able to do that. The only constraint comes with support. It's going to be harder for us to support things like jammed extruders if you're using overseas filament that's not tested the same way the MakerBot filament's tested. So you're of course able to use it, but yeah, it's going to be harder to get support on it. And then the question on resolution came in. I see that now, John. That's 100 micron resolution is what we call our high setting.
All right.
Yeah, great questions.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for the last couple of questions, guys. Bennett, thank you very much again. And with that, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.